Hello everyone, so welcome to the series of videos of strategic leadership. This is part 5 of 8 and we're going to talk about the formal strategic planning. So through my videos, I go mostly through the traditional, let's say, way of formulating a plan. So there's a process to it. And although there's different ways to do it, I believe that the formal plan is something that really creates much more strength and much more credibility of the strategy to result and to be adopted by the company. So typically what we do is, first of all, we select our mission and the goals for our business. And once that is done, the step 2, I would say, is to analyze the organization's external competitive environment and the internal operating environment. And just a heads up, in the next videos and in the next series of videos we're going to have, we're pretty much going to go through step by step through all of these things. Today, in this series, we're already going to cover the corporate mission and goals, but for example, next series of videos will be specifically about external and internal environment, although today I'm going to talk a little bit about them. After we analyze the external internal environment, then we start to select the strategies. And we must select strategies, and not just one strategy, but several, because we need to evaluate them to see which one is the best one. But we need to select strategies to build on the strengths that the company has and that corrects the weaknesses that the company has. But at the same time, they are consistent with what the organization stands for, their mission and their goals. We also need to make sure that those strategies are congruent and constitute a viable business model. In other words, that they make sense, that they are realistic. And once that is done, we would implement the strategy. So one of the things that I would say is the very first step in defining all this is to define exactly what is your business, what does your business is. And I think for that, there are 3 main questions that you need to answer. All right, because these 3 things will define everything that will make your business real, let's say. The first one is, okay, so who is being satisfied by this business? In other words, what are the customer groups that I'm trying to target? And I swear to God, if I see another person saying that we are targeting everyone, I'll just drop it, that as a student, because to be honest, you cannot target anyone. Now, that might work post-World War II, where you were targeting everyone because there was much less competition, but nowadays you have competition for everything. So saying that you're targeting everyone is not realistic. Even if it was possible for you to target everyone with a product, you would still need to start with specific customer groups first, because your marketing would not be able to deliver a message that would connect to your customers if you don't know who you're trying to target, who you're trying to talk to. So define who is your customer group. The second big question you need to answer is, okay, what is being satisfied? What is the need that the customer has that I am trying to satisfy? And if you don't understand what can your product do for your customer, then your customer will not understand what your product does for them either. All right. And finally, the last question is, how are customer needs being satisfied? In other words, what makes me different? Why are they selecting my product rather than a different product? Why are they selecting my set of characteristics rather than a different set of characteristics in another product? And by defining these 3 things, then this is a great way to start the process of strategic formulation, because you truly, in my opinion, define the core concept of what your business is. So then we start with the mission statement. Now, there's a couple of things here. You probably already heard about many of these things, but I'll review them very quickly. First of all, you need to define what is the mission of your business. Now, the mission is a very important statement that many businesses don't define. But the mission statement is the purpose of a company, or a statement of what the company strives to do. In other words, why are we here? What is the reason why we exist? Right? If you don't define this, then it's going to be very easy for everyone in the company to have a different thought about what the vision of the company is. The mission statement needs to be something that every employee must be aware of. Now, the vision statement, something similar, but the vision statement is more about where does the company want to be in the future, all right? Where do they want to be? Now, my suggestion to you is go online. There's so many, pick up the big brands that you know and check what are their mission and vision statement, and you will see the difference. Mission statement is what we do. Vision statement is what we want to be. there's two more things that I believe are important to define. The values of the company. Now, the values are a statement of how employees should conduct themselves and their business to help achieve the company mission. In other words, the values define, okay, we defined the mission before, but this is how we're gonna make that mission come true. This is the values that we strive to achieve, or we strive to do on an everyday basis in order to achieve our mission. And finally, we establish our goals. Now, after all this is defined, you can start establishing your goals. And remember, a goal needs to be precise and measurable, and it's a desirable future state that a company wants to realize. But it needs to be precise, like I said, and it needs to be measurable. Otherwise, it's not a goal, it's just a dream. So, all of this is saying that going through all this process of the formal planning models, I would say that there's many critiques as well that are done to this kind of model. So, for example, the formal planning process, because it takes longer, has a couple of problems. Problem number one is that a lot of times there are unforeseen circumstances, problems that show up, or new characteristics that all of a sudden come to life, and therefore they affect your strategic plan a lot. And sometimes the plan that you spent 2 months defining, now it's completely worthless because of this new condition that came in. A lot of times in this process, we put excessive importance to the role of top managers, and therefore we listen more to what top managers say rather than what functional managers can contribute. And this is a problem as well, because like I said before, functional managers are the ones that deal every day with the employee, and with the employee, sorry, and with the customer. And if we don't get what they have to say, then our plan can be unrealistic, sorry. So this can be, like I said, while ignoring lower level managers. And the other thing is that many successful strategies are a result of what we call serendipity rather than strategic planning. In other words, are the result of conditions or that showed up in the moment, or are the result of the inspiration of the moment that you had. And a lot of times, many strategies that are implemented were not carefully planned, but rather they were adapted to the circumstances of that specific moment. Now, one of the most important tools, in my opinion, when it comes to strategic planning is that we use scenario planning. Now, scenario planning means that we come up with a variety of strategies, and we don't go to a customer or to a problem and say, this is the solution we have. Rather, we go with a set of solutions, alternatives. Typically, I always like to develop between 3 and 4 alternatives to the same problem, because only with alternatives can we know what is the best solution. If we only have one option, we don't know if it's the best. So scenario planning is formulating plans that are based on the question, what if? Okay, what if scenarios in the future? So what if our budget decreases? What if customers expect more than what we're delivering? What if we have more customers than the capacity that we have for our business? So we define all these plans in order to try to brainstorm different paths. And this will encourage managers to do many things. It will encourage them to think outside the box and be more flexible, to anticipate also probable scenarios. But one of the things we need to be careful is that sometimes we enter a situation called the ivory tower planning, which means that this is when the ivory tower planning method recognizes that successful strategic planning encompasses managers at all levels of the corporation. In other words, the best plans are not the plans that come only from top managers, but rather the plans that come from all levels of the organization. So to summarize, the formal planning process is a method that takes time, a lot of efforts, and a lot of times what you plan will not become a reality. But in my opinion, it's one of the best methods because it truly forces you to think outside the box and think for alternatives. And like I said before, only when you plan alternatives do you know that the option you had was the best one. When you only plan one solution, you cannot be sure that that was the best solution. Thank you very much everyone for watching, and if you have any questions, just let me know in the comment section below.